Hi, this is Scott Ford from MrFordsClass.net, and welcome to another Monday Mailbag. In this mailbag, we talk about what's going on with the scruff and how much time should you spend studying for anatomy and physiology. Hi, and welcome to this week's Monday Mailbag. I want to talk about two things. First of all, what's up with the scruff? And two, a question from a viewer out there, which is a great question, very specific to anatomy and physiology, which is how much time should you spend studying for A&P? So the first question, what is up with the scruff? If you guys have noticed, I'm not just sporting the face mullet right now. I'm kind of growing a little scruff here. The reason for this, and this is a pretty fun reason, by the way, and if you're a professor, consider doing this the first day of class. It's a lot of fun. I will get to class, and I will sit in the seats. I'll sit where the rest of the students sit, and I'll pretend I'm a student. And I have to go a little bit scruffy, try to go a little bit more disguised. It's becoming progressively harder as my videos are getting a wider distribution and more people are knowing who I am. So I have to go incognito. Anyhow, so I go to the class and I sit amongst the rest of the students, and I'll start to ask questions. And I'll go, hey, is this anatomy and physiology? And I'm looking for students to interact with me. And somebody will say, oh, yeah, it's an A&P. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I'll wait a little bit while more people are funneling in. And then I'll ask somebody, well, what book? What book is this? What's the textbook for this class? And somebody will show me, and I'll go, how much was that book? And they'll go, $200. Like, $200? Oh. Basically, I'm trying to make a bit of a spectacle of myself. I'm trying to be kind of obnoxious, more or less. And as we get closer and closer to the start of the class, then I'll ask somebody, who's the instructor for the class? And somebody will say, oh, it's Scott Ford. And I'll be like, oh, God, no, not Scott Ford. Oh, he's horrible. Oh, it's hideous. And, people on the first day of class are worried enough. And now here I am going, this professor is horrible. And somebody will say, well, on Rate My Professor, he's supposed to be really good, and he's got great reviews, and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, oh, no, guy's a jerk, and he's evil, and he's hard, and his tests are ridiculous, and it's a lot of fun. And then class will start. So let's say class starts at 7 o'clock. I'll still sit with the rest of the students, and at about 7:05, I'll start complaining about, this guy's late, and, he doesn't show up on time, and he did this all last semester, and he thinks his time is more valuable than our time, and at about, 7:10, about 10 minutes after class is supposed to start, and people are still funneling in first day, so it's not like I'm really delaying to start a class. It's about 7:10 or something, I'll get up, and I'm like, well, if he's going to do this, I'm just going to drop the class, and I start walking out the door. And I'll say, if he's not going to bother to show up to teach the class, then I guess I will. Hi, everybody. I'm Mr. Ford. This is so much fun. Seriously, if you're a professor, do this. Do this on the first day of class. Pretend you're a student and complain about the class, complain about the book, complain about the professor. It is so much fun. One time I did this. I had a student who, under her breath, loud enough for me to hear it, kind of under her breath, said, well, if you had paid attention, maybe you... And I say that I had to take the class over again. And the student kind of said loudly under her breath, if you paid attention the first time, maybe you wouldn't have to take it over again. It was great. I had one class where I had this one person really on the hook. I mean, I was just bringing them in. It was great. And I go, and by the way, hi, everybody, I'm Mr. Ford. And she goes, oh, hell no. It was so much fun. So, again, if you're a professor and you've never done this, it is so much fun to do. And the great thing about it is because we have so many students of different age groups now, even if you're an old fuddy-duddy like me, you can still get away with it. Now, if you're younger, if you're in your 20s and 30s, go for it. It is so much fun to do. And I know a bunch of schools are starting back this week and a few more weeks. So if you're a professor out there, give this a shot. A lot of fun. Anyways, back to the actual reason for this video, and that is and by the way, quick timeout. If you happen to be in my class and you recognize it's me, please don't ruin it. Just kind of watch. Maybe give me a wink. Go, I know what you're doing. And watch. It's a riot. Anyways, back to the whole point of the video, and that is simply how much time should you spend studying for anatomy and physiology? The answer to that is a lot. The anatomy and physiology classes, again, traditionally by and by at large across the world, how these things are taught, they have a 50 to 60% fail and drop rate. And let me repeat that again in case you didn't if you didn't hear that. Anatomy and physiology across schools, community colleges, and universities have a 50 to 60% fail and drop rate. Back in the day, they used to welcome you to college and university by telling you to take a look to your left and taking a look to your right, and that person's not going to be there. This is the last really holdout of that world in science classes. Anatomy and physiology has a humongous fail and drop rate. One of the reasons why I started doing my videos was because I really hated having 50 to 60% of my students failing and dropping. And it became a graduate project, and it kind of just took off from there. So understand, one, that anatomy physiology, at least in the AP 1, is memorization. It is memorization, 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 and regurgitation on exams. You're going to have to learn not only, see it itches now, you're going to have to learn not only every bone in the body, you're going to have to know all the bumps, lumps, grooves, holes, dimples, furrows, everything on a bone. And that's a lot of memorization. You're also going to learn language that you've never heard before. You're learning words that aren't part of the English language or any other language, unless you're, from ancient Greece. So there's a lot of words you have to learn, vocabulary you have to learn, and structures you have to learn. So you're going to be memorizing a lot. Unless you are wired differently, where you can memorize everything in a night and then boom, on the exam the next day, you're going to have to do this over time. I can only speak from my experience, both what I did as a student and what I observe as an instructor. You have to memorize stuff every day. You have to immerse yourself in the world of anatomy and physiology from day one. What I recommend doing is your textbook. You have pictures in your textbook, and this definitely comes into play when you get to identifying structures. Photocopy those pictures. When I was going through school, Netter's Atlas of Human Anatomy was huge. In fact, for many years, I recommended pretty much my students to get this book. It was about $75, depending on sales or whatever, to get this book. What I did when I was a student is I photocopied pages out of the book. And I would put, let's say I was memorizing the bones of the skull. I would put photocopies of the skull in my bedroom, next to my bed. So it's the last thing and the first thing I see when I go to bed and when I wake up. I put a picture of that, a photocopy of that, on my bathroom mirror. So as you're brushing your teeth, okay, you're looking at the image. You put the image everywhere, okay, on the refrigerator. You bring it to work. You put it on your cubicle. You put it on your wall. You put it on your desk. You have this stuff with you everywhere you go. Now, I will tell you from experience that I even went so far as to make a photocopy and put it on the dashboard of my car. Don't do that. That is not the brightest move, and that one quickly went away. So you need to be immersed in this. Is the take-home message. You need to immerse yourself in anatomy and physiology. You need to have this stuff with you constantly. In previous videos, I talked about making index cards. You have to have the index cards with you. Again, to try to narrow in on how much time you need to spend studying for this stuff is kind of hard, because you really need to not know where your study begins and where your study ends. You need to just be with this stuff constantly. Now, here's the problem. If you are a full-time student, how many credits should you be taking? One of the hardest semesters I ever had in undergrad was a semester that I took chemistry and physics in the same semester. And I actually had a light semester. It was just physics and chemistry, and I think one other class, 8, 9, 10, 11, maybe 2 other classes. And that was a hard semester for me. That was a harder semester for me than taking almost a maximum amount of credits, but they were in electives, they were in humanities. My bachelor's is in psychology from University of South Florida. That semester where I took, psychology and sociology and English and some other electives was pretty easy compared to a semester I just took physics and chemistry and like 2 other classes. So most people run into that. 2 classes of hard sciences is very difficult because you have lecture, lab, and it's just a lot of learning, and it's a difficult concept. So again, I can't really give you an hours per week. I know there's this whole calculator thing of if you take this many classes, hours is how many hours you have to study, blah, whatever. I can tell you for anatomy and physiology, you have to immerse yourself in the topic. Photocopy images out of your book, post them on your walls, post them again on your bathroom mirror, be with this stuff constantly. As far as how many hours you need to study, again, it really depends on you, but I can say study a lot and study before the exam. Don't wait for the night before the exam to study. Very little of that will stick afterwards. So that's what I'm talking about here. Also, I would highly recommend as a study aid is something called Visible Body. I will be actually posting a review of their new product as soon as I get time to get around to do it. I have seen it. It is fantastic. It is available on both Mac, PC. It's the reason why I bought my iPad. Of a different software thing that they produce. It was phenomenal. I recommend it to my students all the time. And that's also another great way to look at this stuff. So again, let me sum up real quick what you need to know as far as study time. One, with the studying, you need to be with it constantly. You need to immerse yourself with it. You need to have these copies put everywhere on your mirror, on your bedroom wall, index cards. Bring this stuff to work with you. Look at it if you are, let's say, taking a bus or a metro. You need to just immerse yourself in this constantly. My Netter's Anatomy book, which I still have from when I took many years ago, is covered with food stains. And yes, you need to bring this stuff with you when you have lunch and when you have dinner. It is with you constantly. In fact, I'll share this one story with you, and then I will sign off for the week. And that was, I was at Pizza Hut, and it was a physiology exam. I was taking some sort of physiology class. I can't remember. I think it was neurophys. And I was reading my Guyton, which is the physiology book. It's the medical physiology book. And I was reading my Guyton, and I was studying, and I'm eating pizza, and I'm studying, and I'm eating pizza, and I'm studying, and I'm studying. I was so engrossed in studying that when I was done eating, I went to my car. And I was kind of fiddling around with the car and putting my stuff down. And the manager came out, and they said, "Would you like to pay for your meal?" I'm like, oh. I was so engrossed in studying, I forgot to pay the bill. Okay, that's how engrossed you have to be. And you're doing this constantly. You're doing this at lunch. You're doing this at dinner. You are constantly immersing yourself in the world of anatomy and physiology because, like I said, it's a lot of memorization, and it's also a lot of terminology you may not be familiar with. So, no specific hours, but you have the general idea. Again, if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer, please email me at mrford@mrfordsclasses.com. Also, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video if you like it. Share it with people that you know are taking the class. And thank you very much. We have hit over 4,500 subscribers, and we're growing every day. So I really appreciate that. Thank you guys out there for helping to spread the word. Until next week, we'll see you later. Have fun studying out there. And if you're starting class this week, best of luck. See you later. Bye-bye.